Hi, I'm Bob Tabor with Developer University. For more of my training videos for beginners, please visit me at devview.com. In the previous lesson, we looked at how to format strings and how to manipulate strings, whether it be for display or for the purpose of massaging data. In this lesson, we'll do the same thing except for dates. So we'll start off by talking about formatting dates and times. We'll look at how to add and subtract time to a given date. We'll look at how to create a date-time object that represents this moment in time, or the past, or the future. And then finally, we'll look at how to determine the length or the duration of time between two date-time objects. So to begin, I've created a new project called Dates and Times. Pause the video, please, and catch up with me. And what we'll do here is actually just create a new date-time object by going date time, and we'll just call this my value, and we're going to initialize its value to a valid date time. So the easiest way to do that is to represent this very moment as the application is executing. So we'll go datetime.now, and that represents this instant. All right, and the easiest thing that we can do is just do a console.writeLine taking my value and calling the toString method. Now you'll see we have a lot of to something strings, and we'll look at several of these in an effort to format our date time the way that we want. But this default toString method will take our country and our locale and will present dates and times as they are typically presented in our country and in our culture. So here in the United States, we usually represent the month first and then the date. I know in other countries, most other countries, it's date, month, year. And then we have the time of afternoon that I'm actually recording the video. Notice that it also has AM, PM as opposed to military time or 24 hours. So in order to change the way that this is presented, we're given a bunch of other additional helper methods, and so we can do something like this. So myValue.to short date string, and this will just display the month, date, year. We can also do and isolate the short time string. So here we just want to display what time of day it is. All right, 3:35 in the afternoon. Great. We can also choose a more long form version of the date. And you can see it's Tuesday, March 15, 2016 as I record this. And we can do the same longer version for time as well. So my value.toLong time string. All right, and so you can see not only do we have hours and minutes, but also seconds in the long time string. Great. All right, so oftentimes what we'll want to do is do some date time math, which means we either want to add hours, minutes, I guess seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years, whatever the case might be. But we can do it through a series of helper methods, the add methods. So here I'm just going to console writeLine, and we'll take my value, and we'll start off with something simple like add days. You can see that we can add milliseconds, seconds, hours, days, and everything up from there. So let's just do something simple like add days. So we'll add 3 days, and then we'll just do a to long date string on it like that. Now you may have noticed me do this in the past where I've used the period. Remember, that's the member access operator, and chain together a series of commands. So in this case, we have a value that represents a date. If I were to call the add days method, notice as I hover my mouse cursor over it that the return value of add days is another date time. So now since I have another date time in my hand that represents today plus 3 days, then I can call that date times toLong date time string, which now returns, as you can see, a string data type. So that's the notion of chaining method calls together. As long as you continue to chain together methods that return some value of some data type, you can continue to call methods for that given data type. All right. So let's go ahead and see now 3 days from now, it will be in fact Friday, March 18th. And let's do something with regards to hours, and let's go my value add hours, and we'll add 3 hours to long time string, and that will be 6:38 p.m. Okay. And then what if I wanted to subtract time? Are there any subtract hours or subtract days? No. However, what you can do is simply use a negative number to subtract. So instead of adding days, I'll subtract days. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and run that. And you can see 3 days ago, it was Saturday, March 12th. Great. All right. So in addition, we can just grab off parts of a date or time. So here again, let's go, whoops, let's go my value, and let's just pull off this current month, and this will return an integer. Now console.writeLine we know can accept an integer, so we'll just go ahead and print out the current month. So the third month, obviously that's going to be March. Okay. All right, now we've looked at how to create the current date time, but what if I wanted to create a date time in the past or in the future? I could do something like this. So date time, and I'm going to call this my birthday. And here again is that new keyword that I've hinted at a number of times. We will get to it. Don't worry, but I'm going to use it one more time. New date time, and I'm going to pass in the year 1969. The month, December, and then the day, the 7th. That was the day I was born. And so now what I can do is something like we've been doing up to this point, console.writeLine, and just my birthday .to short date string, just to prove that it's a date just like the other dates that we've been working with. So 12/7/1969. All right. Now there's one final way to create a new date time, so let's create another version of birthday equals datetime.parse. Remember we've used int parse. We were able to take a string and turn it into an integer. Here we're going to take a string and turn it into a date, hopefully. So we'll just type in my birthday again one more time, and that should give us a date time object that represents December 7, 1969. And now what I'm going to do is try to determine how many hours that I've been alive or how many days I've been alive. Days is probably a more interesting number. And in order to represent a span of time, we're going to use a new data type called time span. So here I'm going to use a new time span, and we're going to call this my age equals datetime.now subtract, and the subtract method will take the current date and subtract whatever date we want to use. So in this case we'll use my birthday. Okay, so now that I have an object that represents a span of time, I can say represent that span of time in terms of days or years or whatever the case might be. So to do that, I'll go console.writeLine, and then I'll use this myAge dot, and here I can say give me the total number of days that I've been alive, and print those to screen. And you can see I've been alive, what, almost, well, 16,900 days. Whew. I'm getting old. Okay, I say that every time I record this video, and I feel older every time. So at any rate, here we were able to format dates for display. We're able to manipulate dates by adding and subtracting date and time, and then we're able to determine the difference between two dates using a time span object. We also talked about different ways to create a date, whether it be now or sometime in the past or future, by either just using one of the versions of the date time objects constructor, we'll talk about that later, or by using datetime.parse and passing in a string. Okay, so let's stop right there and we'll pick it up in the next lesson. Doing great. See you there. Thanks.